It is 2013, it's now the summer, and the big movie of the summer is Iron Man 3. So we thought it'd be a good time to talk about the Iron Man films. We've talked a little bit about Iron Man on one of our best of the year lists, but we never really gave it its due. So this show, we're going to be talking about Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, and of course, Iron Man 3. But before I get into this, let me introduce my friends here, Mr. Jeff Galashaw and Mr. Eric Cohen. Do you have nothing to say?
We're at Edwin's apartment, people. This is Edwin's apartment, his new apartment. It's a penthouse apartment. Really
Moving
swanky.
on up to the east side, to a deluxe apartment
We're
in the
definitely
sky.
keeping that in the edit. That's definitely
All right. Well, anyway, the movie came to the screen from Marvel. Marvel, of course, was a very well-known comic book company, and they were licensing out a lot of their films to other studios, and then this was their first in-house production by themselves. And they delivered it. I mean, I had a lot of
fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, but no, I had a lot of respect for how well it came together because when I first saw the director was announced was Jon Favreau, I was thinking
Interesting choice.
All night long they chatter away, all day long they were happy and gay, swinging and singing in the Humpty Monkey way. Dabba dabba dabba, dabba dabba dabba.
Although, you know, Zathura? Zathura. I thought he did a really good job. It's a great children's fantasy flick.
I never saw it. I have to say, I was shocked at how well this movie came out. Only because originally, Iron Man is not one of my favorite comic book superstars, I guess you could say. But after I saw the first trailer, or at least the first ad during the Super Bowl, you know, I was really impressed by what was done, and I was like, I'm there. And I still kind of went in skeptical, like, this could still kind of suck. You know, they could have just thrown a good trailer together. But I have to say, I was really blown away by how much I liked it and how much fun I had with it. My problem, it's not a real problem, but I guess considering I know somewhat of the Iron Man and its villains, was that it just seemed like they threw together, I don't know the history of Iron Man and all his enemies, but I guess the enemy they came up with, spoiler alert, with Jeff Bridges being the big bad behind everything.
Jebediah Stane.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of, it just felt either thrown together or kind of weak. It went in with the themes the movie presented about living in his father's shadow and trying to equal or try to surpass what his father did with his research, but I thought that, to me, was...
Stane.
Since you like saying his
Jebediah
name.
Stane.
That was the only part I found, if any weak parts in the film, that was the weak part.
Jon Favreau was a comedy director, and I didn't think he was that funny of a guy. But what's so funny is he finds the right balance and tone for the series. Is that, you know, it has a somewhat jokey humor, but it's not so...
Well, clearly he has a sense of humor, because I used to follow his Dinner of Five.
Yeah, Dinner of Five.
On IFC, and that was a really entertaining show.
That was a good show.
And
one of the inspirations for this show, in fact.
There you go.
Was it? I didn't. That's
we tried to do a Dinner for Three. Unfortunately, we were rained out.
Well, as you can see here, we have a nice feast. We're up here on my roof. This is my new home. As you can see, I've cooked some ribs, and we've had some nice barbecue beef. There goes Eric eating. The first topic of discussion today is Iron Man.
Oh, are you shitting me?
We're raining, people. Pick up the umbrella quickly.
Oh, careful.
I do kind of agree with you about the villain. Okay. He's not the most memorable, but the good thing is you've got a terrific actor playing the villain who makes the part more than what it could have been if they would have gotten somebody else. I mean, I'm a big Jeff Bridges fan. I mean, I think every cinephile, quote unquote, respects his talents. And he adds a lot more to a part than it could have just been very boring. We forgot to mention, I think, the anchor of the film, and it would be Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. truly makes this movie something special.
Yeah, before we were rained on, Jeff brought up the thing. It was like he said something about how Robert Downey Jr. wouldn't have been your first choice.
He wouldn't, even though he's a good actor who I usually do.
When I had the opposite reaction, they mentioned his name being attached to it. I thought that was an inspired choice.
And you know what's a refreshing change from Iron Man? One thing we haven't really discussed is that it breaks the trend of some superhero films we've seen lately, where everything is super dark. I like the somewhat sunny tone and the glossy feel. They moved it to LA. Originally, I believe Iron Man's universe was New York City, and they moved it to LA for a little bit more...
Using Steven Spielberg's house as the model for his house.
Wow.
Which I found out on my trip to California.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, you learn something new every day.
But they bring it back to New York in the second one.
Yeah, in the second one. And in the Avengers, of course.
No.
Well, I like the film. I say the only problem I had with it was nothing, really. I thought it was better than I expected. True. Jon Favreau did a good job.
Also, the first two Iron Man films have the best Stan Lee cameos, I think, in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah, the first one, I believe they think he's
Hugh Hefner.
Hugh Hefner, and the next one's Larry
And it's
King.
brilliant. It's just a throwaway moment, and it's brilliant. And the second one, they think he's Larry King.
That's really funny. Well, of course, since the movie really, did phenomenal business. It started
deservedly.
Deservedly, yeah. It was probably one. It was a nice surprise. And of course, what happens when a movie is successful? They rush a sequel into production, and I think that's the problem with this film. They rushed it too quickly because it came out 2 years after the first Iron Man, and that'd be Iron Man 2. Again, they were smart enough to get a really good actor to play the villain, which was Mickey Rourke.
But they don't really give him too much to do.
They don't really give him anything to do, and it suffers from some very serious problems.
I just felt that it was misguided because you're going to shoehorn all these characters and they all have to have their big moments because they're obviously interested in trying to continue this eventually to the Avengers. But also, that what suffers is, again, you're doing deeper of a character study with Tony Stark, but now that you've set up this huge villain that kind of equals him in storyline, try and show the world, that my father was a genius and so am I. But then it felt like half the time Mickey Rourke is just cameoing because, he comes in, there'll be a big action sequence where, he fights Iron Man. But then it'll be like, oh, but now we have to go back to the Senate hearings with a cameo by Gary Shandling, or we're going to kind of set up Sam Rockwell as kind of a rival, also villain. So it's like, who is he, who are we supposed to focus on and who is he supposed to focus on? I understand it's great from a storyline, just like it seems like a lot of superhero movies, you have all these different villains coming at you to confuse you so you don't know who to focus on, but that's how it feels like when you're watching the film. What battle am I supposed to focus on? Who's he focusing on? And then you throw into all this, you have the Black Widow kind of flirting with him, and he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? So it's just like, what am I supposed to be focusing on? And you jam all this together, and it just comes out like if you're like making a meatball, and it's not the right shape, and it's like you keep trying to shape it, but...
I didn't have the problem with it a lot of other people had. I didn't think it was any work. I didn't think I thought they tried to do. I agree with you. I thought they tried to do too much, but I was incredibly entertained, and I didn't think Mickey Rourke was.
He was wasted.
I didn't think he was that wasted. He had enough screen time. I think honestly though, the reason why I liked it as much as I did was because of the actors. Because Rourke is still great in it. Rockwell was fantastic in his role. They all brought something more to those parts than they probably deserved.
The problem is the script, as far as I'm concerned. I agree with Jeff. The problem is they obviously want to set up the Avengers. That's a major problem for me because you have like Scarlett Johansson, zooming in through all these scenes, and you're like, what the hell is this? It's obvious, for the Avengers. It's obvious it's set up, and that kind of distracts you from the main narrative with Mickey Rourke. Now, Mickey Rourke, I thought, was phenomenal. And his best scene is in the middle of the movie at the racetrack. That should have been the climax, but unfortunately, they put it in the middle, and then at the end, there's this big giant CGI battle, which is it's just so phony. And there's this huge battle at the end of the movie, which is pretty big, where he has all the robots facing him. All of a sudden, like I said, you're completely lost in that. Then all of a sudden, he beats them all. All of a sudden, Mickey Rourke shows up, one punch, he's gone. That's the end of the movie, and I'm like, this is it. This is the movie.
Well, don't forget War Machine helped a little.
Terrence Howard was in the original Iron Man, and he was very, very good. But supposedly he was a real nightmare to work with, so he was recast with Don Cheadle. And now Don Cheadle is very good in the role that he's taking over. He's different, but he's very good. And it's sad that Terrence Howard was replaced, but Don Cheadle more than steps up for the task.
I agree.
Because I
thought Don Cheadle was great. I thought the actors were fine. I didn't hate it as much as you guys. I understand the issues. I understand why, when there's so many dumber summer blockbusters out there.
I guess because the first, at
I
least
thought
for me,
Iron Man 2 had a lot more to offer than a lot of the worst ones out there.
I guess for me, my reasoning is because I understand sequels are rarely as good as the original, but I guess since the quality of the first Iron Man, I expected at least, if not equal, you can diminish a little, but I felt this was a huge letdown from the first.
It was a huge letdown for me, too. We saw Iron Man again about 2 years later in the Avengers, And in fact, I think, as we've already discussed, that was probably an amazing achievement by Joss Whedon. And of course, because of the Avengers...
Wait, Edwin, what happens if I press this button?
It's not a button. It's a tray table holder.
It's a tray table holder?
You can put, if you open up that chair over there, the little...
That's it? That's
all
it does?
This one's full of remotes.
That one has a little table. These are the home... This is my home theater chairs, and that's my projector, and I have over here...
This isn't like a lazy boy? You can't...
You can put it back. Yeah, there's a button there, but don't be lazy.
There's
buttons everywhere.
Hey.
Interesting.
All right.
Don't get that comfortable.
Wow, we're
anyway,
talking Iron Man.
Anyway, this is my home theater. My projector's over here, and I'll have a 120-inch screen over here. But anyway, of course, because of the Avengers film was such a big hit, the anticipation was even higher for this new Iron Man film. And, of course, I got immediately excited when I found out that one of the, I think, the premier writers of his time was going to write and direct it, and that was Shane Black. This would be his second film after the wonderful, very underrated Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Oh, you fucking bastard.
Now, get it right. He wrote and directed it.
Yeah, of course, Shane Black is well known for writing the Lethal Weapon
Which was an
films.
inspired choice, again.
Well, it's because
Robert Downey Jr. inspired choice to play Tony Stark, and eventually Shane Black inspired choice to direct.
And this was actually Robert Downey Jr.'s thank you to Shane Black, because Shane Black casted him in Kiss Kiss... Will you stop it? This was Robert Downey Jr. thanking Shane Black for casting him in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because at that time, Downey's stock was at an all-time low because of his drug use. And Jon Favreau actually showed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang to the Marvel executives, who actually said that's why they cast him in the Iron Man film. And let me tell you, it was a great choice because Shane Black is a nerd, and I mean that I mean that as a compliment. Yeah, affectionately. Yeah. I mean that affectionately because he knows film really well, and he knows comic books pretty well. Now this film, what I like about it is it does take a different approach to the series, but yet it still feels like part of the universe. It has a more jokey tone.
I was going to say that.
which is very amusing. And of course, this introduces us to Iron Man's most well-known villain, which would be the Mandarin, who rumored that he was not in the first few films because he was I guess, a stereotypical character.
They couldn't figure out how to fit him in that more realistic take on things. And now that the thing was, well, sort of, his organization made an appearance in the first one.
Right.
The rings, whatever, the order of the rings, the 5 rings, whatever. Mike Foltz was here, he'd be able to clarify this. But now, the 5 rings, that was the Mandarin's order. And back then, they didn't know like what direction they're going to take the Marvel characters yet. They're going to do like the uber fantasy thing, or just stick to hard science and stuff like that. Well, since the Avengers and since they introduced Thor and all this other stuff, they're like, okay, we're going to introduce magic and all this, you know. So we might, I think the time is right to bring the Mandarin back. But it wasn't the Mandarin.
Yes, and that's gotten a lot of people pissed.
Well, are we allowed to discuss spoilers for this?
Yeah, spoilers. Hold on.
Eric, I want to insert like a little ticker at the bottom. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Tick, 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 tick. Do not watch this if you haven't seen the movie.
So I don't have to do that now.
Well, one of the things that I like that also Shane...
Why are you doing that?
that Shane Black also likes
to do. Be careful the microphone cable.
In a lot of his films is he likes to write typical action scenes, but also insert original thought and ideas. And I thought with this ending, one of the things I really enjoyed was he introduced post-traumatic stress disorder, but while you take it seriously in a movie, he threw comedy in there, like the scene where he's dealing with it after the kid says something, and Robert Downey Jr. is like, why did you say that? And, you know, it's more comedic, but we're realistically dealing with it. And then when it comes to the Mandarin, what I really enjoyed is he sets up this villain, but then reveals to us, oh, this is all a ruse, because the person you thought was just in cahoots was the one who was really in power the whole time. And I know some people have said this, and I agree. It kind of feels familiar because it's kind of like the Riddler storyline from the definitely worse movie Batman Forever. But see, this movie actually used it smartly, whereas Batman Forever used it ridiculously. And since you had said like how Robert Downey Jr. was paying Shane Black back, it would have been nice for a Val Kilmer cameo in this film, so the whole gang could be all back together.
Or you could play the Guy Pearce character.
Well, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. This is important. In the second film, we saw something that was very poorly done, but in this film it's done better, is that Tony Stark dealing with his problems of being Iron Man. One of the scenes that I love the most in the movie, and I have to say it's the one that I really admired because it's very different than what we've seen in the previous Iron Man films, is where the little boy says, when he's, when Tony Stark is freaking out and having one of his post-traumatic stress disorder things, the little boy calms him down and says, why don't you do something? Why don't you create something? That's what you do. And he creates all these little devices out of stuff in a tool shed.
One of the fun things is this is where you really notice, I guess, what Robert Downey Jr. likes to do in a role, because notoriously, he usually likes to follow the script, but he also informs his director to leave him a little room so he can improv in a lot of scenes. And I think it's obvious, it's more evident in these Iron Man movies than in some of his other roles, where it's more you have to stick to the script and say exactly. Like, also Sherlock Holmes, you can tell a lot of times he's improving half the time.
Well, I think it's smart about Shane Black, because Shane Black is such a great writer. I mean, like the script is probably perfect, but he's smart enough to let Robert Downey Jr. improv and make it his own.
There are people who are like Iron Man fans. They hate what they did with the Mandarin. They hate that they removed the chest piece from his chest.
I don't think this is
even though that happens in the comic, right? Doesn't that happen? I don't know.
I'm not the person to ask.
I was never an Iron Man fan.
Nor am I.
Never.
But see,
growing up on comic books.
I guess the thing I really enjoyed was that even though he has the Iron Man suit, one of the things that truly also makes him a superhero is, again, like you said, he's a mechanic, he's an inventor. He thinks things through most of the time. Sometimes he's impetuous and just, does whatever he wants to do. But here, he always thinks about things, like especially that final battle at, I guess, the warehouse, where, he would like to have the suit, but he's actually thinking about his moves before he's doing them. And that is something you don't usually get to see in films of superheroes, because even though, I'm a human or I'm a normal person at heart, but still, in the end, they have to rely on the awesome power that they have to save the day. Here, yes, the suit helps, but he also has to think things through, just like his escape from, I guess, those thugs where he keeps threatening them, and, and nothing happens. It's more comedic, but I just like the fact that he thinks things through more.
You said you want to say something about Guy Pearce.
Oh, Guy Pearce. Well, it was nice to see Guy Pearce again getting work. He got overshadowed by his other Australian brother, Russell Crowe. But what I love about Guy Pearce, the man is a total chameleon. He's a good-looking guy, but he's a very good character actor. And when you first see him in the film, you see him as this really nerdy character, and he does a pretty good job convincing you that he's this character. And all of a sudden, you see him again, and he's this, Mr. GQ suave. I wish they would have had a little bit more of a transition for his character.
But I think that was the reason you don't see that transformation is so that when Pepper sees him, it's so much of a shock.
Well, where I agree with you and don't agree with you, I think it's explained pretty well what caused that change. But I agree with you, I would have liked to have seen it.
Yeah.
Just so that we have more to hang on to that character with.
You could have had him talk about it in a flashback. He does talk about it in a flashback, but you don't see him transition. You just see him as the character, and the next thing you know, he's Mr. GQ. But Guy Pearce was very good. I just didn't, and that's one problem. Back to the movie, that was one problem I had where his was the plot point. Them exploding people and things. It really wasn't fleshed out. But he did the best he could with the role that was given. But he was good, but I didn't make any sense. Fuck me.
This expression in your face.
I guess, but that more again plays with the real world, like the obvious Osama bin Laden, suicide bombing, sort of, even though they're doing it unwittingly because they're thinking they're doing it for this ultimate power, but in the end, it's just, but if you get overheated, you just explode.
Great character actor William Sadler plays the.
That was inspired.
That was shocking.
And who plays the vice president?
Oh yes, Miguel Ferrer.
Of course, if he plays anybody, he's gonna betray someone.
I love Miguel Ferrer.
That way.
I love the guy.
He's always gonna do something douchebaggy in a movie.
Though I would have liked to see Steve Rails back. I'm just throwing that out there at random. Since we're talking character actors.
Well, I love.
So anyway,
well, I think we could all agree the first Iron Man film is obviously the best. I think we all agree. Again, the third one is second best.
I think it's the best out of all three. Yes.
Okay. And second would be number 3.
Yes, I think number 3 surprisingly to me is more fun than the first one, but that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I would say the first one is the best. The third one is the second best, and the second one is the least.
Yeah, what I like again about this one is that I do like it. It took a somewhat different approach. I did appreciate the humor it did liven things up a bit. Usually I wouldn't like that sort of thing, but it's so well done here.
That little post-credits coda,
brilliant,
was actually pretty amusing.
And
it wasn't like they were gonna like throw on, guess what the next hero is gonna do, who's gonna play that kind of bullshit. It was just like cute little thing explained why he was narrating the whole movie.
Yeah, we're not gonna spoil that for you, but I will say this: I know it pissed off a lot of fanboys. They were expecting something to set up the next Avengers film or something. It does not.
You still have Captain America.
Everybody pissed off about that as much as what was messed with on the Mandarin side of things.
Let it go, people. Let it go.
Let it go.
It was a good film, and I'm very happy.
You hear thunder, lightning? This is why we're not on the roof.
We're risking our
barbecue episode.
Just think about it, you guys. We're risking our freaking lives to tape because you want it. So there you go.
So.
All right. I guess I'm Edwin Samuelson. That was
you're Edwin Samuelson.
That was Jeff, and
I'm still here. I'm not in the past. You said that.
Stop that, please. It's so annoying.